Hello students, welcome to your NEET College and Counseling Information Platform NEET Predictor. It's an important video for all NEET UG 2024 aspirants looking forward for government medical colleges in India. Before watching this video, if you are new to our channel and want more useful updates on NEET UG 2024 colleges, cutoff, counseling, bond, fees, seat and other details, then don't forget to subscribe this channel. Here in this video, we are going to share with you the closing rank of JIPMER Karaikal and JIPMER Puducherry. First, let's start with JIPMER Karaikal. EWS category, closing rank in round 1, 5707. Closing rank in round 2, 5507. Closing rank in round 3, 9173. Closing rank in stray round, 17,804. OBC category, closing rank in round 1, 3912. Closing rank in round 2, 5436. Closing rank in round 3, 8026. Closing rank in stray round, 20,160. Open category, closing rank in round 1, 2770. Closing rank in round 2, 3799. Closing rank in round 3, 5605. Closing rank in stray round, 17,588. SC category, closing rank in round 1, 29,840. Closing rank in round 2, 46,655. Closing rank in round 3, 60,495. Closing rank in stray round, 1,02,086. ST category, closing rank in round 1, 47,860. Closing rank in round 2, 48,059. Closing rank in round 3, 75,587. Closing rank in stray round, no seat. OBC PWD category, closing rank in round 1, 3,74,476. Closing rank in round 2, no seat. Closing rank in round 3, 5,46,997. Closing rank in stray round, no seat. Open PH category, closing rank in round 1, 3,02,502. No seat in round 2, round 3 and stray round. Internal Puducherry UT domicile for EWS category, closing rank in round 1, no seat. Closing rank in round 2, 2,81,524. Closing rank in round 3, 3,13,157. Closing rank in stray round, no seat. OBC category, closing rank in round 1, 37,519. Closing rank in round 2, no seat. Closing rank in round 3, 40,301. Closing rank in stray round, no seat. Open category, closing rank in round 1, 25,786. Closing rank in round 2, 60,613. Closing rank in round 3, 27,803. No seat in stray round. SC category, closing rank in round 1, 1,41,853. Closing rank in round 2, no seat. Closing rank in round 3, 1,58,485. Closing rank in stray round, no seat. JIPMER Puducherry, EWS category, closing rank in round 1, 1350. Closing rank in round 2, 1150. Closing rank in round 3, no seat. Round 4, no seat. OBC category, closing rank in round 1, 591. Closing rank in round 2, round 3 and stray round, no seat. Open category, closing rank in round 1, 277. Closing rank in round 2, 227. Closing rank in round 3, stray round, no seat. SC category, closing rank in round 1, 3630. Closing rank in round 2, 6533. Closing rank in round 3, stray round, no seat. ST category, closing rank in round 1, 11,584. Closing rank in round 2, 15,036. Closing rank in round 3, 29,335. Stray round, no seat. OBC PH category, closing rank in round 1, 1,81,657. Closing rank in round 2, stray round, no seat. Closing rank in round 3, 3,41,996. EWS PH category, closing rank in round 1, 4,20,487. Closing rank in round 2, stray round, no seat. Closing rank in round 3, 9,01,528. Open PH category, closing rank in round 1, 49,182. Closing rank in round 2, 59,029. Closing rank in round 3, stray round, no seat. SCPH category, closing rang in round 1, 1,94,647, closing rang in round 2, round 3, stray round, no seat. STPH category, closing rang in round 1, 7,08,335, no seat in round 2, round 3, stray round. Internal Puducherry UT domicile, EWS category, closing rang in round 1, 29,723, closing rang in round 2, round 3, stray round, no seat. OBC category, closing rang in round 1, 38,269, closing rang in round 2, round 3, stray round, no seat. Open category, closing rang in round 1, 10,667, no seat in round 2, closing rang in round 3, 48,578, no seat in stray round. SC category, closing rang in round 1, 1,35,427, closing rang in round 2, no seat. Closing rang in round 3, 1,46,554, closing rang in stray round, no seat. SC category, closing rang in round 1, 8,05,855, closing rang in round 2, round 3, stray round, no seat.